That Saturday was one of those leisurely ones when everything seemed to be going slowly. I was just sitting around the home scrolling through my phone when I noticed a missed call from Liam. He'd left his headphones at my apartment after we hung out the night before and needed them returned. It didn't seem like a huge problem to me, so I grabbed the headphones from the table and texted him that I'd stop by. Liam didn't live far away, just a quick journey across town, nothing complicated. I knew his mother, Charlotte, was typically home, but she kept to herself or remained tucked away in her bed. I hadn't given her any thought other than the fact that she was fairly lovely for her age. She was probably in her early 40s, but she didn't appear to be any older. To me, she was always just Liam's mother. That is it. There's nothing more. So when I knocked on the door, I expected Liam to respond, but it was her. She opened the door wearing only a towel, her hair still moist from the shower. She appeared slightly astonished, but not ashamed. I didn't know where to look, so my gaze went away almost instantly. Is there an uneasy feeling in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife? "Hey, Russell," she said, smiling. "Liam has gone out for a little. What brought you over?" I stuttered over my remarks for a second before holding up the headphones as a peace gift. "I just dropped these off. I had no idea you'd be in the middle of something." She uttered a quiet laugh and brushed a wet strand of hair behind her ear. "Oh, I'm not busy," she replied nonchalantly. "Just came out of the shower. Do you want to come in for a bit?" I paused for a second, not sure if I should, but I went inside anyway. I mean, she wasn't a stranger, but it felt different now. I'd always seen her as a controlled, motherly figure. I never envisioned myself feeling drawn to someone in that way. We sat in the living room and she gave me a beverage. Initially, the talk was light and easygoing, but as our conversation progressed, I realized she was opening up in unexpected ways. She spoke about life and how things were changing around her. How, while being surrounded by people, she sometimes felt absolutely alone. For a while, I didn't feel like I was speaking with my closest friend's mother at all. It was just her and myself sharing an honest, genuine moment. And the way she looked at me suggested that she was interested in what I had to say. That's when something in me changed. I started seeing her differently. There was more to her than simply being Liam's mother. Then she smiled softly and mysteriously. "Russell, you've grown up so much." "It's hard to believe," she said. "I recall you and Liam running around the home as children." I didn't sure what to say, so I gave a slight nod. There was a new type of electricity between us, something unspoken but undeniably present. I could feel it, a spark, a quiet tension, but I was unsure what it signified. But I knew I wasn't prepared to leave yet. She got up and walked into the kitchen, and I followed. As she passed me, I caught a smell of her scent, which was still fresh from the shower and delicate. And for a little moment, she no longer felt like Liam's mother. She was only a woman, an individual with her own narrative and needs. "Thank you for stopping by," she added, turning back to face me. "I really needed to talk to someone today." I offered her a modest grin and felt a nice sensation in my chest. "Anytime," I said. Even as I departed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between us. Something unspoken had taken root, and I wasn't sure where it would lead. The next time I saw Charlotte, it was unplanned. I was out picking up some goods for dinner when we ran into each other in an aisle. She was holding a jar of marinara sauce and scrutinizing the label with a pretty little frown on her brow. And for some reason that struck me. How had I not seen how naturally lovely she was? It wasn't only her appearance. It was the way she moved, the quiet assurance with which she carried herself. She seemed to know something that the rest of us didn't. I hadn't anticipated to run into her, and to be honest, I was unsure how to react. We hadn't talked much since that bizarre morning with the towel and headphones, but something about that day resonated with me. Something about her grin and the way she gazed at me lingered. Still, I dismissed it as a one-time strange occurrence until she looked up and saw me. "Russell," she murmured, smiling calmly and invitingly. It was the kind of voice that quickly made you feel at ease. I smiled back, attempting to keep things casual. "Hello, Charlotte. I didn't expect to see you here." She replied, "Just grabbing a few things for dinner," motioning to her cart. "Do you need anything?" Simple question. However, it evolved into a full-fledged conversation. We talked about food, the weather, and other lighter topics. But beneath it all, there was a throb of something deeper. There was a subtle but palpable sense of tension. Little looks, quiet smiles. And then, unexpectedly, she said, "Are you doing anything tonight?" She said it nonchalantly as if it didn't matter much, but I could tell she was testing the waters. I wasn't sure how to answer. I shrugged. Not much, just laying low at home. She smiled faintly. Liam is out with his mates tonight. I was considering fixing dinner. You should come over. It would be great to have some company. That offer took me completely off guard. My good reaction was to politely decline. After all, other from Liam, what else did we have to discuss? But the way she said it made it difficult to say no. Before I could think twice, I heard myself respond, yes, sure. And that was all. I had no idea what I was entering into. But later that evening, as I accompanied her back to her house, my chest tightened with anxiety. I felt a buzz in my chest that I couldn't explain, like if I was about to enter somewhere I wasn't expecting. When I arrived, her house felt as pleasant and comforting as always. The aroma of home-cooked food wafted through the air, enveloping the space in a warmth that felt almost too welcoming. Charlotte was already in the kitchen, softly humming to herself while stirring something on the stove. I stood at the doorway just observing her for a moment. And that's when it struck me. This woman in front of me did not feel like the Charlotte I knew. She appeared the same, yet something about her felt more genuine, more open. Go ahead and sit down, she said over her shoulder. Dinner is just about finished. I sat down in one of the kitchen chairs, trying not to appear nervous. She strolled around the kitchen so effortlessly, as if she belonged there in every way. Meanwhile, I sat there trying to figure out what was going on inside of me. It wasn't simply how she looked or how relaxed she appeared, it was how she made me feel, as if I were more than simply her son's buddy. We ate and the talk flowed. There were no awkward silences or forced small conversation. We chatted about life and how things seldom turn out exactly as you expect. She talked about her earlier years and how she missed the excitement of spontaneity, the feeling of being thrilled about something. She agreed that with Liam's frequent absences, everything had settled into a sort of pattern. Her voice sounded harsh when she uttered it. She seemed to have been holding back for years, claiming everything was all right when it wasn't. I listened. I didn't provide any insightful counsel or deep insights, I simply nodded and let her speak. Even as I sat silently, I noticed things. Her eyes would light up when she became impassioned about a subject. Her laughter sounded quite real. She wasn't only Liam's mother anymore. She was a woman. She has thoughts, feelings, and a life of her own. Thank you, I remarked as we finished eating and I began clearing the dishes. She smiled at me, and for a brief moment I noticed something deeper in her look. I'm so delighted you stopped by, she said. It's been a long time since I had a real chat with anyone. I didn't know what to say, so I gave her a slight nod. But I knew we were thinking the same thing. There was a shift between us now that we didn't have to acknowledge aloud. When I attempted to leave, she hugged me. It was straightforward, relaxed, and pleasant. But her hand lingered a second too long on my back, and that moment stayed with me. Take care, Russell, she whispered softly, almost in a whisper. My head spun as I walked out to my car. That night had seemed so typical, and yet it had caused something to loosen inside me. I could not describe it. She didn't do anything blatantly inappropriate. But the way she looked at me and listened, it made me feel like there was something genuine between us. A different type of connection. I had been to Liam's house 100 times, but this was not the same, and I despise how much I thought about it in the days that followed. I tried to push it from my mind. I tried to act like nothing had occurred. A few days later, Liam called and asked if I wanted to get a drink. I figured that getting out would help clear my mind. But as soon as I went into the bar, I noticed Charlotte sitting at the counter with a few of her friends. She noticed me, smiled, and waved. Without thinking, I waved back. Her smile was relaxed, yet it had a warmth that had not previously there. Something unspoken made my stomach churn slightly. Hey, Russell, she remarked as I walked up. I didn't expect to see you tonight. I shrugged, trying to be cool. Simply hanging around with Liam. I didn't know you'd be here. She laughed lightly. Yeah, I plan to catch up with some old friends. I haven't had a night out in a while. Her gaze lingered on mine for a second longer than necessary, and just like that, the tension returned. That subtle undercurrent hums between us, always there, just beneath the surface. I should have backed away, should have said evening and joined Liam, but I did not. Instead, I sat down next to her. We talked, we laughed, pretended that there was nothing strange about it. Eventually, Liam arrived and joined us. The three of us sat there talking about school, old memories, and silly things we used to do. Even with the chatter buzzing around, my mind kept wandering, and every time Charlotte looked my way, I felt it. That shift. That's something. Charlotte's laughter or glances elicited a reaction in me, something I didn't completely comprehend. We both felt as if we were holding a secret that neither of us dared to reveal. Then at one point, Liam got up to get another drink, leaving just the two of us at the table. I hadn't planned to say anything, but the words just came out. "So, Charlotte, how have you actually been?" She paused. Her smile faded somewhat, and for a moment I saw something raw in her eyes. "I'm okay," she said calmly. "I've been feeling a little lonely lately." Her honesty caught me off guard. It was as if she peeled back a layer revealing someone I hadn't expected. Someone who was not simply Liam's mother. "Yes," I answered, nodding. "I understand that. It's not always easy." She returned with a quiet nod, and we sat in silence for a few moments. It wasn't awkward, it was kind of serene. I wanted to say something extra to console her, to lighten the burden she was bearing, but the words did not come. So I just gazed at her, wondering if she really meant it. Or perhaps she was hinting at something deeper. Liam returned with our drinks, and the moment ended. But something within me had moved. That night, my perception of Charlotte shifted. She no longer felt like just a friend's parent. There was a distinct type of light surrounding her now. A risky sort. Later, when we all decided to leave, I walked Liam to the car, but my thoughts were fixed on that little conversation with her. What exactly did she mean by lonely? Was she bored? Or was she softly requesting something more? As soon as I came home, I collapsed into the couch and replayed the entire night in my thoughts. That supper. That was a confession. That expression in her eyes. It was then that I realized this was not just some random night out. There was something else going on between us, something unspoken. And whether I wanted to or not, I was drawn into it. The scariest part, I wasn't sure if I wanted to resist anymore. The following few days felt heavy. I couldn't stop thinking about the bar and how Charlotte opened up. Her calm admission. Her gaze lingered on mine as if she was searching for something. There was a weight in the air between us. I couldn't shake the feeling no matter how hard I tried. I kept convincing myself that it meant nothing, that it was just a one-time event. But I knew better. Liam and I had always been close. He was my best friend. But lately, even when we hung out, I noticed my thoughts slipping. Return to her. Return to Charlotte. I despised that about myself. I despised the thoughts that refused to go away. She smiled. The way she carried herself, she felt different now. That Saturday, I resolved to clear my mind. I called up Liam and proposed we go to the park and shoot some baskets. It's like old times. Maybe if I moved my body, I could relax my mind. When I arrived at the court, Liam was already practicing his shot. He looked up and smiled when he spotted me. "It's about time." "You are late," he remarked, giving me the ball. I forced a smile as I said, I had to deal with something. We played hard for the next hour. They were joking, talking trash, and attempting to outdo one another. But my mind wasn't on the game. I was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere warm, soft, and perplexing. After a while, we took a rest by sitting on the court's edge. Liam asked unexpectedly, "You think my mother is doing okay?" He wiped sweat from his brow and looked across at me. The question confused me. "What do you mean?" I asked. "She's just been distant recently." He remarked this while searching the pavement. Not as usual. I'm not sure if she's stressed or not, but something feels strange. I believe she's going through something that hit harder than I anticipated. I'd always perceived Charlotte as a controlled, steady presence, never rattled or uncertain. But perhaps I was mistaken. "I did not know," I said, keeping my voice quiet. "You chatted with her about it." He shakes his head. "Not really. Every time I attempt, she brushes it off. I don't want to push her, but I can sense she's not fine." I wasn't sure what to say. A part of me wanted to come clean, to tell him what I had felt and seen. The transformation in both her and me. But I could not. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. Perhaps she just needs some space. I volunteered, trying to seem casual. "Yeah," he mumbled maybe, but I could sense the weight of his voice. He was not buying it. We concluded the game and went back to his apartment. My gut, however, remained tight the entire time, as if I were heading towards something I couldn't stop. We entered the front door and there she was. Charlotte is seated on the couch, flipping through a magazine. When we entered, she looked up smiling as if everything was okay. Hello, everyone, she said cordially, but I could see it. Her eyes showed fatigue. She maintained a rigid posture. I realized she was performing a part. Hey, Mom, Liam said, settling down on the couch next to her. You doing well? I questioned, looking over at her. Charlotte paused briefly before nodding. Yeah, it's been one of those long weeks. I could tell she was brushing it off as if it were nothing. I didn't confront her about it mostly because I didn't know how. My heart was hammering louder than I wanted to acknowledge, so I went to the kitchen. I wanted a second to breathe, to get away from the weight hanging in the room. But as I reached for a glass of water, I heard footsteps behind me. Charlotte stood in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest. Russell, she replied quietly, her voice calm yet direct. Can we talk for a minute? I turned around, caught off surprise. Yeah. Okay, what's up? She walked inside and softly closed the door behind her. The distance between us narrowed and I felt my chest tighten as she approached. I just, I just wanted to thank you for another night. She said, not quite catching my gaze. It meant so much to me. I swallowed hard, her words hitting harder than I expected. Of course, I replied. You know I am available if you ever need someone to talk to. She nodded slowly, and for a moment neither of us spoke. We shared a dense, heavy quiet that buzzed with everything we weren't saying. Then, almost as if to change the subject, she said, Liam's a great kid, you know. He's experienced his share of adversity, yet he has a kind heart. I nodded again, unsure where things were going. But her gaze remained on me for an extra second. The same spark I felt previously had returned. It hummed between us like a wire that had been stretched too tightly. Yeah, I replied quietly. He actually does. She smiled, but there was something else in that smile that I couldn't quite identify. I wondered if she was thinking the same thing I was. And for a fleeting second, I considered asking her. I almost inquired what was going on here, but I did not. I just stood there, caught in the silence with her, wondering where to go. Finally, she ended the moment with a quiet, Thank you again, Russell. Any time. I responded, but part of me realized I wasn't saying it the same way now. A week passed since that night in the kitchen. The conversation was not spectacular or loud, but it stayed with me. Every time I saw Charlotte after that, the air felt different and electrified. I couldn't tell if she felt it too or if I was just projecting my emotions. Regardless, the mood between us had shifted and I couldn't shake it. Liam and I hung out as usual. He laughed, joked, and did his best to keep the mood light, but it did not help. Every time Charlotte entered the room, my gaze followed her. I noted the small details like how her head tilted when she spoke and how her eyes met mine for just a second longer than required. It was little and hardly visible, but I saw it. I felt it. Then came Saturday. Liam had arrangements with his friends, so I was left at their place alone. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I didn't mind. The truth is, I needed the solitude. I wanted room to process what was going on in my thoughts and belly. I was sitting on the couch thumbing through my phone when I heard her voice cry out from the hallway. Russell. I looked up in astonishment to see her standing there. Her expression was unreadable. Hey. I tried to seem casual, but my heart was already racing. She walked into the room, paused for a bit, then asked, Can we talk? That simple question caused my gut to clench. Yes, of course, I remarked, putting my phone aside. She approached and sat alongside me on the couch. We weren't touching, but the distance between us was barely noticeable. The air felt heavier. The room felt smaller. I've been reflecting about our recent conversations. She began, her voice soft and cautious. Anne, I believe that I owe you an apology. I gazed at her again, caught off surprise. This was not where I expected the conversation to go. I realize I've been a touch distant. She explained that she had recently dealt with some issues and did not want to blame anyone else. I blinked, attempting to read her face. I mean, it's fine. Finally, I said, You do not have to apologize. She smiled warmly at this, but something in her eyes suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. There was more she didn't say. I appreciate it, she responded, but I think I may have crossed a boundary with you. My heart skips a beat. This was the moment I had been dreading and, to be honest, quietly praying for. I had no idea where it would lead, but I couldn't stop myself from hearing her out. What do you mean? I asked, my voice softening and becoming more cautious. Charlotte took a deep breath and looked down at her hands, gently tugging at the edge of her shirt. I believe you already know, she added gently. There's been something between us and I can't keep pretending it doesn't exist. I froze. Her words struck me squarely in the chest harder than I expected. Of course I had felt it, but hearing her say it aloud made it seem more real, palpable, and confusing. "I'm not trying to make things awkward, Russell," she said just above a whisper. "I'm just not sure how to deal with this. But I can't keep pretending nothing is happening." I glanced at her, my mind flying in several directions. Everything inside of me was screaming that this was wrong and that I shouldn't be in this place. And yet there I was. "I don't want it to be weird either," I said, trying to remain calm and keep the whole situation from unraveling. "But I really don't know what you want me to say." She caught my gaze, then direct and steady. We both remained silent for quite some time. The stillness was dense, laden with all we couldn't say aloud. She then reached out. Her hand brushed across mine, soft and scarcely noticeable, but electrified. It shot a thrill through me. My breath caught, and for a few seconds I couldn't move. "This isn't just a crush, Russell." She whispered, her eyes fixed on me. "I'm not sure what this is, but I can't ignore it anymore. And I do not want to." A surge of emotion washed over me all at once. Guilt, curiosity, desire, fear. I was aware of the hazards. I knew what would happen if anyone discovered this. But I knew we had a strong connection. And part of me did not want it to stop. "Are you certain?" I inquired, my voice wavering. "I mean, whatever this is." She nodded and her fingers curled firmly around mine. "I am sure." And with that, the line we'd been carefully dancing around disappeared. We said nothing else. There was nothing left to say. However, the air had changed. We both felt the change, the weight of what we had just recognized. Everything changed after that. It's been 1 year since that night. We both chose to keep a secret for a year. A year of balancing everyday life with the peaceful time we had set aside for ourselves. In some ways, it feels like we've lived an entire existence in those few stolen moments. We didn't discuss it much. About us. What began the night she answered the door and a towel had not vanished. It just became a part of our existence. It felt strangely natural. However, it was also frail, something we kept very close. We all agreed on one thing from the beginning. Our pleasure mattered. And that delight stemmed from trust. A form of trust that allows us to disclose everything while keeping it hidden from the outside world. We created our own little space, our own miniature replica of anything real. But the guilt never really left me. Every time I saw Liam, something pinched at the back of my mind. Not because I believed he should know, but carrying a secret like this always leaves an impression. Nonetheless, I never second-guessed my choice. We both made it. And no matter how chaotic or difficult things became, it always seemed right. Charlotte and I saw each other whenever we could. Not too often. We never exceeded the limit. We kept everything discreet, quiet, and out of sight. The most difficult part was pretending Liam would visit. Smiling as if nothing was happening. We keep our hands to ourselves, acting as if we were nothing more than buddies. Nonetheless, those small moments, the quick gaze, the discreet smile, the fleeting touch when no one was looking, they became everything. Those were what kept us together. When we were alone in her house, we'd discuss what may happen if the truth was revealed. We never had a clear plan. Only hazy possibilities and half-formed concepts. However, we did not linger on it for very long. We remained in the present, in the calm in-between spaces where we didn't have to justify ourselves to anyone, where we could simply be. It was a calm Saturday evening, roughly a year after our relationship began. I was back at Charlotte's house, seated on the couch, the same location where it all started. The place remained tranquil. Liam was out with his mates, so we got the home to ourselves again. Everything felt normal now, comfortable in a way that had before been alien. We'd learned how to live like this, quiet, careful, and linked. We didn't have to continually talk about our emotions anymore. The relationship had settled into something stable, something genuine. It had always been unorthodox, however, it became something I couldn't see giving up. Charlotte sat next to me, looking as beautiful as ever, but there was a softness to her now, an ease in her physique and a serenity in her face. It had taken time, but we had learned to bear the weight of all we possessed. We had grown into the secret. I found peace in it. I figured out how to make it feel like home. "Do you ever think about how we got here?" She inquired quietly, her tone warm and low, breaking the silence. I grinned and leaned back, sinking into the cushions. "All the time," I said. "Honestly, I still can't believe we've stayed together this long." I looked over at her, my old astonishment changing into something resembling thankfulness. It does not feel like a year. She gave a quiet laugh and placed her head on my shoulder. It doesn't right, she muttered. But at the same time, it seems like this has always been our home, as if this was supposed to happen. I slowly nodded, brushing my hand against hers. Yeah, it's weird, I said. But it's the good kind of weird. I never anticipated my life would be like this. But now that I am here, I wouldn't change anything. She tilted her head, meeting my gaze with that same expression that always seemed to make the world stop. She responded gently, me neither. Given the circumstances, I believe we performed admirably. I'm glad we kept it between ourselves. Her voice was firm and sure. It is ours. It's just ours, and she was correct. That was the most important element. It was not about anyone else. This was something we created quietly, painstakingly, and collectively. I am pleased, I replied softly, giving her hand a tiny squeeze. We are happy. That is what counts. We did not speak much after that. We did not have to. We simply sat there side by side, enveloped in silence that did not require filling. The only sound was the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall. A year had passed, a whole year spent lurking in plain sight. We somehow made it work. We kept the secret. We protected what we had, and through it all we held on to what was most important, each other. As the evening progressed and the sky outside darkened, one thought became apparent in my thoughts. This is how I wanted things to stay. It was not ideal, it was untidy, odd, and difficult, but it was ours. And sometimes that was sufficient.